We want to talk about how to start your men's group off right. It's January, which means a lot of people are starting new things. A lot of new groups are starting. People are interested in reading new material, new books, new resources. Churches are operating for sure on getting groups kicked off. And so thought it would be a valuable conversation. We may bring up some resources tonight, but the last Recalibrate we just did actually tackled that question. What are some resources that I can use, which you can find on the YouTube channel? But tonight, I definitely want to jump into this. So Greg, my first question that I love for you to just share on is, what's the number one thing that you tell men when they come to you, when they come to Zoweh and they're thinking about starting a group?
All right, welcome everybody to Recalibrate. My name's Greg Sailors, along with my friend Josh Overton, both part of the Zoweh Allies team here at Zoweh. And we're so thankful, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or live on Zoom tonight, the third Thursday of January. And tonight we're going to be talking about how to start your men's group off right.
I definitely want to jump into this. So Greg, my first question that I love for you to just share on is, what's the number one thing that you tell men when they come to you, when they come to Zoweh and they're thinking about starting a group?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. That's a great question. I think that the number one thing, I always throw it back to them, and I'll say, well, how's your heart? And I like to start with their own journey, and what have they experienced? We had to add some questions, for example, to our Zoweh Allies group about, have you read Heart of a Warrior? Have you read Wild at Heart? What are the men's books that you've read? Have you been to the weekend? And we have a lot of people that haven't. And it's not that they can't join that group if they haven't been, but it's a good telltale sign that if you're going to start a men's group and you haven't done the work in your own heart, then doing a men's group to do the work in your heart is probably not the place you need to be as a leader. And so I always start with the heart and ask some good questions about that. And even if they have, which I know we have a lot of veterans here tonight, some of you a little more veteran than others, by the way. I think that it's still so good to make sure that we're highlighting and making the heart central. What are you doing for your heart? How are you connecting with God? How's your intimacy going with your family and with God? And what's teaching you right now? Whether it's a resource or, swinging a hammer or whatever it is, something needs to be speaking to your heart. So what are those things? So we really make it about intimacy with God first. And how can we help you make sure as you're starting a group, how's your intimacy going? And I know that's like maybe understood because maybe that's not the how-to nuts and bolts, but it's really where you have to start because that's also the basis of everything that we're trying to help you build.
Yeah, and that is so I don't want to say anti, but it almost feels like that's not usually the answer that maybe people are accustomed to getting. And
right.
So what is the response that you get from that? And then once you start on that journey of your own heart, what's next?
Yeah. I mean, the what's next is like the bonfire is a great example. Is have you got a tribe already? Do you have a group of men that you're already walking with? What does your influence look like? What happens to someone that's worked in the church like I have, a lot of times it's how can I take this to my church? And sometimes that's the answer. And but many times it's not. Who's your neighbor on your left and who is your neighbor on your right? And sometimes reaching out to them. But who is your tribe? Who are the people that you have, friendships with and dominion and have, that type of thing. I'm not in my house because my internet is really stinky. And one of the guys that's in my men's group has our good friend Elon Musk. If you're listening, Elon, please bring Starlink to my house. But he has Starlink. And so I'm just in my truck, at his house, mooching on his internet so I can do this tonight. But he's my man on my left, and then a guy across the street's my man on my right, and both of these guys come to my small group.
Yeah.
And they're people in my immediate area. So I would say the answer to number 2 is, who is your tribe, and who are you doing life with already? And I guarantee you they're doing life with somebody too, and they might have a friend, and then you can start to identify, well, who are the people that we can minister to, and who can I just do life with? Who do I connect with? And so to start a men's group off right, after you're thinking about your own personal, relationship with God and your intimacy with God, the next thing is, who am I already in relationship with? So who can I find in order to do this thing that we want to call men's group? So that's one answer for one part of the segment of the Allies world. What about church? I think throwing it back to you, Josh, I mean, if you're a church in January, you're probably back in October was looking, what's our resource going to be? Of course, what we're going to say at Zoweh Allies, that's not the right question. But if you are looking for a resource, that's okay too. It's a great place to enter the Zoweh world and the Allies world. What would you, as a helping a church, tell them, buddy?
Yeah, I think that's great. Relationship before resource for sure, which we'll get into here in just a minute. But I think looking at your own heart and the journey of that. But then I love the next step, the response of the man on your left and your right. Because if you're like me, and if you're like most men, when they read the book and they go to a weekend, especially, it's okay. How many people can I go save from the burning building that they're in, right? Like, I need to go get all these men in this group right now, and I'm going to go charge hell with a water pistol. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to go do it right now. I'm going to save the world. And we love that and believe that you can. But then you go back to your church, or, and your pastor, and you're trying to share something that he hasn't entered into. He hasn't been away to a weekend with God. He hasn't even read the book. And so what I love about Greg's answer is, man, we're going to start slow, and I'm going to move into relationship with people who are already in my tribe, already in my circle. I'm going to invite my pastor. I'm going to invite my church leaders. I'm going to invite men within my church, within my ministry, to come and experience friendship, to come and experience adventure. Right? I'm going to bring them to an event like the Forge, or we're going to do something like that on our own. We're going to blow up trees on our own backwoods property. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so we're going to do that so you can start to experience these things, because that's what's captured our hearts. Right. And so I love that. And that's what I've been trying to encourage men who are in church and want to bring this to the church to do. And then on the flip side of that, like, we're working really hard to try to build relationships with pastors. I was a pastor for almost a decade, and I think sometimes pastors forget, and certainly people within the pews forget, that pastors are men too, right? And they need to be treated like men. They need to be given permission to be a man. So what does that look like for Zoweh to befriend your pastor, right? And I promise you, there's more out there than not of pastors who have forgotten what true friendship looks like. So that's not gonna fit it into semester probably plan, right? That's a long term, that's longevity. That's 2-3 years of doing life, of doing adventure together, of sitting around a fire together. And so I think, and what we've been trying to do, and what I've been telling the people I've been talking with for sure, as well as Greg, is like, hey, you have to be okay with not rushing this. You have to be okay with an investment of time, because any relationship worth its salt is built through time and intentionality, which brings me back, unless you want to add something before we go there. But again, relationship before resource is so, so important. Okay, great.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about church again, and nonprofits, and the Forge is a nonprofit. And remember, as we look at Allies, friends, we look at Allies in 3 different ways at Zoweh Allies, which is, one is a church, and then one is a nonprofit like the Forge, and then, one might be somebody that just wants to start a group around the fire, or in his backyard, or at the coffee shop, or whatever. But thinking about church again, if you guys don't know it, but since from November to now, I think we've sold 2,500 books, somewhere in there, Josh. Give or take a few. And I'm just, if you guys that maybe are in one of those 2,500 that might be watching on YouTube because you're looking up Zoweh, I'm just thinking, golly, think about how many new friends that are going to be coming into the system that love the book, right? Or, I think about, I was talking with Morgan Snyder several days ago, and we were talking about the book that I'm working on, with Battle Plan, and just thinking about all the good that God's going to be up to there and how that's going to influence things. And so I want to make sure what you guys understand, from the last YouTube to this one, the resources aren't the enemy. The resources are not at all. They really are a blessing. We're thankful for the resources, the ones we've done, and so many others that even some of you have written, and what a blessing they are. And I think about how they impact the people, Josh. And so we want to highlight those things, but at the same time, as we preach and preach at Zoweh Allies, that if it becomes about the resource, then it's already dead in the water, because resources don't drive relationship. Relationship drives relationship. And so as we're moving into this third question, go ahead. You can ask that if you like, Josh.
Yeah, and that's just, how do you make that a priority then? And depending on your setting, but honestly, I don't know that it depends. I think it's just in general, because we do what we've been trained to do. And anytime we've been in a setting with other people, it's usually to get through something, right? To get through these questions, to get through this book, to get through this project, deadlines, timelines, our works, our day-to-day, all of it is driven to get through productivity. And not that getting, again, to Greg's point, getting through the resource is pretty important. That's why Michael wrote the book. That's why John Eldridge wrote a book. Like, it's good to go through it. But man, so how do you make it a priority when everything in us and around us is about getting through point A to point B?
Yeah. Well, let me tell a story. So, I love so many of you guys on this call, and others, I love you just because you're on the call, but I don't know you that well, but I look at these faces of folks on here. So Matt Evans, who's on here, he's a pretty new fella down in Florida. Hey, Matt, glad you're here, buddy. And I would love to love Matt more, because I want to get to know him. We've had some great conversations, but I don't know him that well. Andy Forrester, who's starting a new group, but has been around Zoweh for a long time. Andy, love you, buddy, but I don't know you that well. And lots of you guys, some of you guys I've spent a lot more time with, and others I haven't. Tom Calton, who I've been, great buddies with for a long time, sent me a, very uncommon for you, Tom, a voice message today on, I'm joking. He sends me these long diatribes all the time. And I was listening to that, and he's like, the first thing he said, Tom, was, I'm so sorry we didn't get to spend more time together while we were together, at the bonfire. And we had several days, but it's so easy to get so involved in whatever we're doing, and it's all about the doing that the relationship kind of goes to the side. And think about that in your intimacy walk, which was where we started with number one, is how's your intimacy doing? What's your intimacy checkup? And I wonder, as we're trying to live life together, and we make it about so many other things, Josh, that we just completely throw the intimacy one to another, the relationship, out the window. And I'm telling you that if you do that, then things go badly. And so how do you make it a priority? If you make your affirmation, right, a priority, then what's that going to cause you to do? Well, I need to have more people at the bonfire. I need to talk to more people. I need to make sure that person sees me, right, or sees me a certain way. I mean, all of those things, especially as an Enneagram 3, if you guys know me at all about that, that's easy for me to go to that place, because I do want people to see me, and I want everybody to think I'm the best, because that's the way God designed me, and it's hard to get away from that. But if I make that a priority, then I miss the conversations with people, and so I think about that with our small groups. I know our friend Brandon Lascito out in Colorado. I mean, those guys are about to launch about 40, 50 guys into several small groups. And I was texting with Brandon, and I was telling, hey, you can't let those 40 or 50 guys who I know you want to love, you can't get to all of them all the time. but you can't not try. You know, you got to make those people priorities, and you got to make your relationship with them priority. And if it dwindles to 20 because 20 is what you guys can handle, then so be it. You know, and so yeah, I think I would just end that part of the segment before we move on to the next part here at the end, Josh. With man, if you're having, again, start with like we talked about with number one, if you're having intimacy issues with God, it's gonna be very hard for you to be intimate with anybody else. And I think if you're willing to saddle up with somebody and just be honest and be transparent and talk about your struggles and talk about your victories and allow them to know your story, right? And as you're doing that, that will change the way that you do relationships with other people. And it will continue to be a priority because you've just made that decision in your heart for it to be a priority. And it's going to become a priority for them too, right? And then you go fishing with each other, right, Greg? That's what we do. We go have fun, have some joy. All right, Josh, what about you, bud? Why don't you give us a quick rundown of what you think about that, and then I'll close this out, and we'll let our YouTubers go.
Yeah, man. I love that, and it's funny just hearing you repeat that. It's we don't like to say the word formula around here in Zoweh Allies at all, because it's not really a formula. It's not really a program, but to a point, we start with your own heart, your own journey, intimacy, oneness, and connectedness with God leads to intimacy, oneness, and connectedness with others. So as I'm getting to know you, I'm sharing my story, you're sharing my story. And it's funny because we do that, and then God's like, okay, well, now how do we make this about relationship? Well, just do that. Because you can't share story and not connect. You can't share story and not empathize. You can't share story and not relate. Right? Sharing story, making space for that. It literally breeds that intimacy, that oneness and connectedness. And that's all overflowing from your intimacy, oneness, and connectedness with God. Run that play, man. Run that play over and over and over. Run that play when all else fails. And then the last thing I would just add is, man, I had to learn this the hard way, but I learned it a long time ago, and that's that intimacy is intentional. I think sometimes we think that if it's intentional, if it's planned, if it's thought through, that maybe it's not as thoughtful. But there's nothing more thoughtful than being intentional. And so schedule it. Like, don't just talk about it. Schedule it. Don't fall into the trap of, hey, man, we really need to do this. You're right, we do. Because life will fill up the rest of the calendar for you. So if it matters, then schedule it. Make sure your calendar reflects what is important to your heart, right? Because it does. Our calendars do reflect what's important to our hearts, right? So intentional intimacy is intentional for sure.
Right. Yeah, I've got one more thing to add that came up in my heart is, we have some people in our friendship circles, and there was a lot of guys back since we started with the bonfire, Tom and Rich and Steve and others that were there, that we have to reach out to them. There's just they don't have the capacity right now because of the hurt that they have in their lives. They need an advocate. And so I want to encourage all of us, especially those that are leading groups, to reach out. Maybe not forever. Sometimes you got to cut guys loose because we work with the thirsty too. That's part of the way that we look at things. But for a time, you might need to reach out. You might need to be the stronger brother and help them there for some time. And then the last thing with that is, hey, we have this wonderful event. You guys do too. A lot of you ministries have encounters, or like our friends, have the anvil there at Deep Roots, and there's a lot of other events from Maryland. Our buddies Chef Chuck, who's here, you guys at AIM have events. There's just a lot of events with nonprofits and churches around that they can go to zoweh.org/allies and look at the Front Lines Network and find them. But I would encourage you guys that maybe when you hear us talking about intimacy and making friendships important and your heart and how to start off right, come into one of these weekends, whether it's Zoweh's or somebody else's, and getting your heart back, which is what Wild at Heart and John Eldridge used to call it.
Yeah.
Is so important. orientation, knowing who you are, where you are, and the good that God's up to, so you can live a life with nothing to hide, nothing to prove, and nothing to fear. Lots of times starts with folks that maybe read the book, but also come to the weekend. And so we're so excited to be back in Goshen this year at Rockbridge with COVID tucked that out for the last little while. So we're real excited about that. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, YouTubers and Facebookers and folks that are on Zoom here at Recalibrate. We do this once a month throughout, I think we do it, when do we do it? September through May, and we take the summer off. But so excited for you guys. Third Thursday of the month. We'd love for you to subscribe here on YouTube. We'd also love you to go to zoweh.org/allies, and you'll see a place to subscribe there too to our Allies Dispatch. We do a quarterly newsletter, as well as you'll be the first to find out about the new book, Battle Plan. I promise it's coming sometime in the next 25 years. Maybe this year. We'll see. Love you guys. See you later.